And I just want to say thank you for being a guest on my talk show.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Now, for people who want to know what uncensored is my way of showing people that even if we're in disability, I can still overcome controversy no matter what. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into a perfect example for people out there dealing with any types of disabilities or learning disabilities, that you should never give up or have people label you, and you should prove to them you can still amount to something. Now it's a half hour, 45 minutes of your time. You can say anything you want, curse if you want to, and then I'll pass the show over to you and put you in the driver's seat. But starting off, what can you tell us about yourself?
Depends where you want to start. If you want to start with the beginning of the wrestling career, or if you'd rather talk about the coaching part today, or...
Well, before we jumped into the wrestling, let's get who's the real Rich before we get into the wrestling gimmick.
You want to know about the real Rick?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can give you the Cole's Notes version. Really, it's a long story. Life passes by pretty quickly, and you get a little bit older, and you start to realize, geez, it's still passing by even faster. But I was raised with a younger brother, and we had a pretty good, normal life growing up. I was the one who always got in trouble, and a little bit mischievous, nothing big. And I always liked the combat sports. I liked wrestling and boxing, and loved watching Lou Ferrigno and Arnold Schwarzenegger when I was a kid. And they were the stars of Conan the Barbarian, and Lou Ferrigno was playing the Incredible Hulk, and that's what I wanted to be like. So at 8 years of age, I got a weight set. I asked my parents and bugged them. 8 years old. That's quite a while back, so even an 8-year-old today is considered a little bit strange to want a weight set. But back then, it was out to the moon, really bizarre. So, and that was my main interest, was to become a really good fighter. I was a big fan of Bruce Lee, which I just saw a video of his on Facebook today. He was playing a ping pong ball competition with a pair of nunchucks and beating a professional. It was amazing. Like, he would hit the ping pong ball just hard enough with these heavy nunchucks, and he was beating this guy serve for serve. That's amazing. And he was doing like spin kicks and spin arounds and things like that, and hitting this ping pong ball with the nunchucks like this every single time. I mean, talk about one of the best athletes of our time, or my time, I guess. A lot of these guys like Elvis died when I was just a kid. And it's quite a bit different now. You've got mainly The Rock as a role model. I know that John Cena is somewhat of a role model for people, and I guess part of the reason that he's got a little bit of that military. You know, Afghanistan is a big, huge thing, and I can honestly say that, and it may disappoint some of the listeners and viewers to hear this, but I live in Calgary, Canada. We view things quite a bit differently. We view it as, if those nutcases over there want to run around killing each other, then it's not much of our business. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. It doesn't make sense to most of us. It's just killing for the sake of killing and making governments more money. And that's a pretty general consensus in our society. Once in a while, we'll see on this paper another Canadian dead in battle, and we just hang our sad face and go, why? What is it accomplishing? So that's my big political message for the day. And some people, it might anger some people, and you know what? I'm unapologetic about it. It's truly the way I feel, and I know that coming from the backgrounds that I've studied, ahimsa is a Hindu term that means nonviolence. And I believe in nonviolence. And when I was in my 20s, I used to be a bouncer, and I was a wrestler. And, you know, beyond doing the showbiz stuff in the ring, I pitched guys out. I beat guys up a little bit. Never really time where a guy grows out of that. And there's not that urge for violence anymore. It's a primal thing. And I think when maybe the testosterone of a teenager or some guy in his mid-20s might be really rampant. But when a man hits his 30s or 40s, especially, the testosterone goes down and goes back and it goes down. And the idea of violence really goes down. And I guess, from my perspective and what I really like to get out if I start to talk about those things is that I had a huge ego. And I was a real asshole sometimes. And I have my regrets, and there are things I would have done differently. Although, they have the old sayings, no regrets. If you had to live it all over again, you have to do it exactly the same. Pretty much I would have. I still would have gotten into wrestling, even though I broke my neck wrestling. At the same time, I believe in karmic debt, like having bad karma.
Right.
And I believe there are some things that I did that I wouldn't do today, and they're a little bit unsavory. And I say a little bit because I never went out and shot anybody's kneecaps off or anything insane like that. But they're today. And to repay some of that karmic debt, I do a lot of talks, and I'm actually working with a school right now. And it's not, but also my heart's in it too. The kids in there have Asperger's, they have autism, they have ADD. It's a pleasure of me to be able to work with that. And also I come from a space that I had a hard time getting off alcohol, and it's best if I don't drink again. And it was hard for me to get off painkillers. And it's best if I don't touch them anymore because they screw up my life. And I'll go and speak in front of groups like that for free. Now, typically, I've had about 5 years in the speaking industry now, and I'm kind of tired of doing stuff for free. If everybody's tapping you on the shoulder, always wanting to do everything for free, after a while, I kind of, wow. How does anybody else out there like to work for free? Not too many people say they like to do it. And I'm certainly not discussing that about this interview, because this is a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you're making a new friend out of it.
Yeah. Also, at the places where they have the meetings for alcoholics and meetings for people that had problems being hooked on drugs, I love speaking at those places. I love if I can get a spark in their eyes and change their life. That to me is my heart space. So that's the difference I like to make these days. And when I see other people do things like that, that warms my heart up. It turns my fire in my mind on, rather than looking for people to create violence.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we continue, there's an idea for you. Because you're moving the phone back and forth, and there's a lot of feedback. Okay. Is there a way you can prop your phone on something?
Nothing my height, but I'll just try and hold it still.
Alright, because, I don't know, you just have your finger over the mic, so there's a lot of feedback. Just trying to help you out.
Yeah, I can't do it much different than I'm doing it right now.
Hey, that's fine. Just I wanted to point it out.
Okay.
Now, the next question I was going to ask you was, how did you get into the WWF? Well, WWE, anyway. And how did the whole thing get started with your career and the whole thing about imitating Scott Hall? And that's the first two. And the last part of that, did you ever get the chance to actually work with Scott Hall or meet him?
No, I really loved the movie Scarface. And that was Al Pacino. That's where the razor blade idea came from. That's where the whole Razor Ramon character came from. And it was a fun idea. And Chris Jericho and I were working in Japan in FMW and WAR, and we'd joke around. I'd do my imitations of it. And Scott Hall had just come out with the gimmick Razor Ramon, which is taken from the movie Scarface starring Al Pacino. So we used to have a lot of fun with that. And as the character got more popular in the WWF, I had more fun with it because it's even more so back then, and our voices aren't too far off. And I don't know if it was really imitating Scott Hall for me as much as it was the whole Scarface idea. We just thought it was silly and fun. And when I went to ECW and Sabu, who had been working there, in FMW. So you can see where I'm going with this. It has nothing to do with Scott Hall. Sabu and I went and we wrestled there, and I wrestled a couple other guys in ECW Extreme Championship Wrestling. Paulie dangerously said, how do you want to do this match? And I said, well, what do you want me to do, Meg? And he starts going, oh my God, can you do that out there? And Shane, the booker, co-booker, came over and he's like, oh yeah, man, can you do that out there? And I said, well, I don't know if I really want to. I'd rather do my own character. But the Blue Meanie was doing a Shawn Michaels character at the time, and Stevie Richards was doing a Diesel character at the time. So that was really the gist of it. It was just a spoof. Like it was a weekend drunk thing. It was just dumb and silly. And there was no intention to carry any of it on. It was like little kids blowing farts. And one of the promoters or one of the referees maybe from WWF, their show was in a really close by town that night or maybe in the same town. He came out to check out the talent of ECW. He saw this, goes back to Vince, tells him about it. Bret Hart, who's a friend of mine, got me to try out with Vince as Rick Titan. I beat the crap out of this poor guy, green guy, in my tryout. And swinging powerbombed him and stuffed him into the mat. And then Vince caught wind that I'd done this Razor Ramon thing, so he phoned me a few weeks later, and I was really hoping to do my own Rick Titan character, and he said, well, the people want Razor Ramon back. I own the trademark, the copyrights, everything else on the character, and I want you to be my new Razor Ramon. And I was really reluctant. Now, at the same time, I've been going back and forth to Japan for about 5 years now. And as much as I love Japan, their doorways are not quite taller than my head. Their beds, my feet would usually hang off. Their showers, I'd have to duck down because they weren't much taller than my neck.
Right.
The food, I would lose 15 to 25 pounds every 2 weeks that I went over there. So I was kind of ready to kind of come home in the sense and work in Canada and work in the U.S. and be used to my own culture and have the full meals and the great gyms and that was the only thing that mattered to me in my 20s is great meals and great gyms. Didn't take much to keep me happy. and the promise and the lure of more money. And that's really the background of how it came to be.
Now, the next question I was going to ask you, and I'm going to pass the show over to you, and you can ask me anything you want. Mm-hmm. The first question is, do you still keep in touch with Bret Hart, McMahon, and any other wrestlers?
Well, it's a downer for, I think, some wrestling fans to hear this some days, but it's a very fickle business. So you can be a hero one day, and you're a nobody the next day. And even if people were cheering for you the night before, the week before on TV, and you were the center of their universe, they don't give a damn if you're alive or dead 10 days later. And that's exactly the experience that I had at the end of my wrestling career. And let's forget about Shawn Michaels and the clique, because there are tons of cliques in the locker rooms. There was all cliques all over the place. If you weren't on TV and active anymore, you weren't part of any wrestling clique anymore. And if you weren't part of any wrestling clique anymore, it's an egotistical business. They don't care to be your friend anymore. And Chris Jericho is one of the only guys that I found cool enough to maintain a friendship with me. Bret Hart's done a little bit. It's been a little more accidental, but at the same time, he's always cool. The rest, not at all.
I'm going to shoot some names to you. I want your honest opinion. Then I'm going to pass the show over to you, and you can ask me anything you want, gloves off.
Okay.
Alright, so I just call this rapid fire.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the top 20, then I'm going to pass it to you. Number 1, Hulk Hogan. Honest opinion, you can say anything you want.
Nice guy. I met him. I'm taller than him.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Funny as hell. I walked out into a WWF show when I was in New Japan. He walked by and said, "Oh yeah, big guy." And he walked by, and that was it.
Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Never met him. Actually, no, I did meet him once in a gym. He was like a wax statue.
Triple H.
Met him briefly. Read lots of books. Didn't say much to me at all. Not very friendly, but probably depends who you
are. Well, like I mentioned, Scott Hall.
Never met him. I think there was some talk between our office and him, and he wanted to relay to me if I wanted any old Razor Ramon gear, that he would sell it off to me or something. And I was quite a bit bigger than him, so I just sort of passed through one of the guys. I think it wasn't Six Pac. It was Man of War, Portuguese Man of War, who was still in touch with him. And I said, yeah, well, thanks, but it doesn't.
What about The Undertaker?
Really nice guy. Yeah, a couple inches taller than me, and just a big, warm heart. And he always remembers who you are.
Well, I do have a couple questions for you afterwards.
Okay.
But that's it. That's 6. Number 7, Kane.
Kane, nice guy, pretty stoic. He's there for business. As we should be. And very, very dedicated to his workouts.
Hey, what about, let's see, number 8 and 9 would be The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I traveled with Dwayne Johnson. He was a really good guy. He had a great sense of humor, and we got to go down through Tennessee quite a bit together, and got a warm heart. I really liked him. Stone Cold, I never really got to know him. All he'd ever say is walk by real quick and go, "How's it going, kid?" And then keep on walking.
Let's see. Well, we don't have to do 20. Let's make it 15. Let's see, number 10. And these are a couple of hard-hitting ones, so I don't mean any disrespect by it. Mm-hmm. You probably know where I'm going with this. Professional wrestling only. I say this, he's the greatest, one of the greatest ever. As a human being, I never met him. I'm not going to say anything bad because you don't knock the dead. But you may know where this is going. Chris Benoit.
Are you asking my opinion of him as a wrestler only?
Well, both. Well, I was giving you my opinion.
Okay. I think it's devastating what happened. And I can't comprehend how it happened. The times that I exchanged any kind of communication with Chris, he was always very, very good to me. And I think one of the top wrestlers that I'd ever seen. And that's all I can lose.
And just 3 more. Let's see who. Bret Hart, like we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. He's still a good guy. It was funny. We sat down. There was a Stu Hart reunion a little while back here in Calgary, and he's got long gray hair now. And he just talked about his place in Hawaii and how it was too much upkeep. That was the majority of the conversation. Times change. Things get different.
What about, let's see, Owen Hart?
Owen Hart was a good guy. He was fun, too. It was strange. He used to just, we'd mostly get hotels, most of us, and he would stay. He had friends all over the place, and he would stay with his friend's place, and I just found that unusual. I could never quite figure it out, but my company after that, so that's my understanding or misunderstanding of it, I guess. I always found it was just a little bit odd for me to comprehend anyway.
And the last 2, because you worked for ECW and WWE, WWF, is what's your opinion about Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon? And Vince Russo, while on the subject.
I didn't really spend any time around Vince Russo. Paul Heyman, I only met him a couple of times in ECW. Again, all business, but he was really passionate about his business. And it was, it looked like to me, the most important thing in his world. And I think when you're that kind of an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be that way. And I would imagine Vince to be fairly similar. there are some things, and I don't think I ever mentioned what they are, and it's not for me to judge anyway. My own perspective and experience, but many others that happened that I think could have been done differently, and I think say certain things, but everyone's different.
And now I'm going to pass the show over to you, and you can ask me anything you want. This is your time. And then we got to wrap up, and when we wrap up, I'm going to ask you some hard-hitting questions. And like I said, this is your time right now. Ask me whatever you want.
So you want me to ask you anything?
Yep, that's what I do. I pass the show. I ask you, you ask me. Like I said, you're making a new friend, and you're supporting a good cause at the same time. So whatever you want to talk about, this is your time.
Okay. Well, if I were to ask you a question, Keith, I don't know you that well. So when you say disabled, what does that entail?
Hey, well, for the most part, when I talk about my disability, I have. Now it's funny. I usually dance around the question, but I have ADD. I have ADD, social anxiety, panic attacks. I'm pretty much like you, only I'm a bit shorter. I'm only like 5'9", 5'10".
Mm-hmm.
I learn at a slower pace.
Mm-hmm.
I give you a perfect example. You would say, teacher would tell you, go read this book.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, okay, no problem. But for me, it's going to go over my head. I don't learn that way. I learn hands-on. If you got to take the time to break it down for me and go over it until it, finally sinks in, that's how I learn. So I learn a lot slower, but I'm not really good with the hand-eye coordination. Like, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. It's like flipping a light switch. But basically, with the disability, I was using it as a long time as a crutch. Can't go to college, I can't drive, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then gotta end up in a group home, or I'm gonna be a burden for someone. So one day I was like, screw it. I used a couple someone's as in my inspiration. And I say, look, God, you guys had learning disabilities at one time or another. But, my sister does her poetry. She's a poetry writer. My brother was on TV. Once a school teacher. The other two were doing whatever. But they overcame their disabilities one way or another. And I was like, and it's uncensored. I was like, fuck it. You guys saying I'm this and I'm that. And I've never gotten a mouth to something. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to show you that I'm not just gotta sit back and keel over. Yeah, there's things I want to do. I want to be a personal assistant. Couldn't really do that. So I was like, well, I do have a passion for making videos. Why not make a talk show out of it? And thanks to you, we're up to 264. And it came a long way. When I first was doing my talk show, and don't ask me why, it was a stupid idea on my part. I did all phone conversations.
Oh.
I interviewed people from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to X-Men to Spider-Man, but it was a blank screen, and I have to show you a couple wrestling interviews I did. And I give you a perfect example. Like this one, it's a great interview, so you're gonna get over 100 hits. I was supposed to do this, and I'm not kissing your ass, by the way. I'm just saying.
Nope.
But because this is video, you see me, you see you. I was supposed to do this with Double J Jarrett. And on the subject, did he ever get the chance to work with him?
I've been around him. I don't know him very well, but I know he's pretty funny.
So when I did an interview with Double J, we were supposed to be doing this. I talked to PR, and it's like, okay, it's going to be a half hour or 20 minutes or whatever. We knocked it down to 20 minutes. And when I told, when I finally got a hold of him, I was like, oh, we're ready for the video. And he's like, video? What are you talking about? And I'm like, didn't PR tell you anything? No, they just said I had a phone interview. Oh my God. That's like, no, I'm not going to argue with you. Not going to pass it up. Let's do the phone interview. And I'm really struggling getting that over 100 because it's just a blank screen with an audio, and that's why I don't do it anymore.
Uh-huh.
But the one reason I don't do it anymore is, and they say, still gets me, and if I hesitate, I apologize. It gets me, and it's like, you have this great format. Why aren't you as big or bigger than you portray yourself to be? Why don't you have sponsors? Well, that's great and everything. Would you like to help me with that? No. If you can't do it yourself, and I guess you're not capable of living up to your potential. It's like, okay, thanks a lot, ass. I didn't say that to him. That's what I was thinking. But one guy I did come across, I did take his advice. He said, what is your demographic? What do you cater to? It's like, well, I interview whites, blacks, Spanish. Okay, what's your following? Oh, okay, I'm not a cult leader. I don't really care if I have a following. No, what's your age thing? Do you cater 50% I cater to the guys and 20% to the girls. I do a lot of fan-made parodies. So that's where the 15 youth comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have over 100 people on my like page, and I'm hoping you like it too. I have over 300 people on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this is a question I'm going to ask you, because I'm doing a good thing. What made you say two questions in one? Well, the first one is, what made you say yes, number one?
Mm-hmm.
And does social media and your following really dictate what you do? Because I have a great message and I interviewed a whole bunch of people, but does it really matter? And I have people I had didn't hear from them, but someone who I worked with talked to, I say, Mickey James, Kansas Michelle, or whatever, named a few.
Mm-hmm.
They said, what is your following? How many people you have? Oh, 300? That's fine, but that's not good enough for us. Come back when you have 1,000, 2,000. I'm like, you understand I have a learning disability, right? And this is a great cause. Putting you in the hot seat now, then you can ask me whatever you want. What made you say yes, and do you think all that really matters, or depends on the person?
You know I'm a coach, right?
Yes.
So, do you mind if I coach you a little bit here?
Sure.
All right. For everyone's going to be a little bit different. So for me, I think that you just connected with me. Maybe it was even in your casual way of doing that, because I think that's the way that social media kind of, hey man, how you doing? That kind of stuff back and forth. I'm also under 50. So I think a lot of people over 50 are going to expect that your languaging is going to be different, that you're going to treat them with a higher level of respect, things like that. And depending on what they do too. They're more, I'm not trying to put labels on anybody, but if they're more suit and tie, the language is probably going to be even more respectful. If people are a little more blue collar and work with their hands a little bit more, you can casual it off a little bit, because they usually think that they're pretty casual and that's just the way it goes. That's a generality, of course, but also there's a guy named Gino Cuddy on Facebook if you wanted to friend him. And sometimes I get a sense I should do that. I spoke in front of the school. It's called the All Boys School, Calgary, and the majority of them were ADD, autistic, and had Asperger's, etc. And I kept them. I did a speech in front of them, and the principal said, and I took them through 2 meditations because I studied with a Buddhist monk for 4 years, right? And the principal said to me, "Wow, I can't believe you kept their attention for the entire hour, Rick. That was unbelievable." And I said, "Yeah, thanks." Like, I was surprised too, right? And so I think I have a special place in my heart, and maybe I may see something. Maybe what we see in others, we can see some of in ourselves. I can tend to be a little ADD here and there. I know I'm super driven. and I can go all over the map sometimes. And it took me a little longer to learn how to wrestle than a lot of the guys. And in school, especially in the mathematical part, it took me a little longer there. But I also have met some people, or especially musicians, that it took them longer in certain things. And in music, they are geniuses. In certain areas, I think maybe in personal development and understanding other people, and maybe you have something like this too, that I can really understand people. Or I hope I do. I hope I get a sense and a feel from them that maybe beyond what a lot of other people do. And I think that's what makes me a good coach. And I think that's why people come and pay me good money to help them out, because I understand what's going on with them. And I've gone through a lot of the same experiences myself. And I've had my low points and I've had my high points. I've been a world champion. I've made lots of money. I've also had my struggles with drinking and lived out of a basement suite. You know, I've had my tough times. I've had girlfriends dump me. You know, everyone takes a look at somebody like let's say the brand of a Rick Titan, and they think that that guy's just that brand. Well, I'm just human, just like you, just like everybody else. And if I can get a sense of that from somebody else's side, now demographically, I would say that for me, I thought that I was going to be coaching mostly former athletes and all male. Somehow it turned out to be an 85% female market for me. Maybe because they like the way I look, some of them. That would be nice. But maybe that I can really understand their heart. And when I speak to them, I speak to their heart too. And that's a special trait.
I'm pretty much like a CM Punk. I'm straight edge. I don't drink. I don't smoke.
Uh-huh.
And people say, well, I don't have a filter. I don't have a filter. But, with my learning disability, I just spew things like, when I said F this or F that. And I am very professional. I take the best quality in my interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not being me and you're just being you. But
Mm-hmm.
if I offended you by using the F word, I apologize.
No, don't worry. I've been in the locker rooms, and I just prefer now, and this is a me thing. It's not about anybody else. For me, and I heard a saying once, and this is the best way I heard it put, and it's hard to measure up to, but I heard that to conduct yourself as if you're a public figure. So almost from maybe reality TV chasing you around in your house to being outdoors, that there's a video camera for the whole world to see sometimes. And your mom, your dad, and your friends and people who saw you when you were just a baby, and they're going to see you till you're in your deathbed. How would you like them to see you? And that's how I try to live my life. I still swear here and there. For the most part, I keep a bit of an eye on it though, and that's just my preference for me. And I place no judgment on other people. Unless there's an F-bomb in every single sentence, I don't find that to be necessary or very tasteful.
Well, like I said, I didn't use the word. And I'll give you a perfect example. I talked to this one professional wrestler, and a year ago, we talked, and he said it was great. We were playing phone tag. Recently, I got a hold of him. He says, well, yes, I remember you. Tell me about the show. As soon as it said uncensored, he said, I don't want anything to do with it. He's like, well, I got a curse on your show. Well, maybe. I may say it once or twice, but it depends on the person. If you get me fired up, am I got to be like FFFF, NVIS, BC, whatever? No, because that's degrading. But if it slips out occasionally by mistake, or if I just want to make you laugh, yeah, I may just say it just to spice it up. But I'm not going to be like FFFF, because that's stupid. Two, that kind of has nothing to do with my show, and I'm more professional than that. And I hope you think so.
Absolutely.
And basically, what uncensored is freedom of speech, freedom of self-expression. Say whatever you want, and you're gonna express how you want. I'm not gonna, pussyfoot around and say, well, we have to keep it PG, and I guess I can make it PG. That's fine, but you can't use colorful words, or you have to, well, when you talk about gay rights or something, you have to dance around it. But you do have to answer it. And it's like, I want my show to be different. I want to say, look, I have a disability,
Mm-hmm.
but look at what I'm able to do. Yes, do what did I slip a couple times by saying the F word? That's fine. I didn't use profanity, but it's just what it is. But each interview it's different,
Yeah.
and it's a learning experience.
Yeah. And, it is, wrestling is a pretty heavy topic like that. And um, getting into things that are either acted out violence or violence, there's going to be F-bombs around that sometimes, I think. Um, and I commend you and applaud you on what you came from and what you're doing with yourself right now, Keith. And I think it takes some intestinal fortitude and some mental integrity to keep taking those steps forward. There's a word in Japan that I learned a long time ago. It's called Kaizen, Kaizen. And it means just small daily improvements and little bit step by step. And I don't think anybody, when I wasn't a Hulkster, but I started lifting weights and I got bigger and bigger. And by the time I was 19, about 11 years later, I was pretty big. But everything's baby steps. Some things happen overnight for people, and sure, but I don't think that's the regular course of things. You can't push a rope and you can't make a field come to wheat any faster than it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, wrapping up, was there any funny stories you'd like to share, or any words of wisdom, how your fans can follow you on social media?
Well, there's a saying that I really like, and the saying is, if a man can kill 1,000 men in the battlefield 1,000 times, yet it is he who is the most powerful who can control his own mind. And that's what you were talking about a little bit earlier. And that was a statement by the Buddha. And if we can control what's in here, at least to some extent, I'm not saying perfection. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But if I can try not to get as angry, which is one of the things I coach people on, if I can try to let go of the painful past a little bit more, it makes my life better. If I can try to stop the self-sabotage and see and clear what's getting in my way and blocking me from my successes in life, that makes my life way better. And that's what I coach people on. And I truly believe in that. And I believe we grow in increments. And sometimes if it's too fast, it's like an elastic band, it just snaps us right back in. So, but we can wear that sucker out over a couple of years slowly, a little bit by a little bit. So our capacity to do good, positive things grows, and then we can shrink down the things that are negative or painful, at least to some extent, and then it is that constant improvement, that Kaizen in our lives. And it doesn't have to be that hard. And that's what I think.